Hello everyone, this isn't a full friendier, but it's something I'm gonna call Quick Chat. It's essentially a little series where I can give my first thoughts and impressions on whatever game that just came out at the time that I think deserves a little bit more coverage, but it's not really talked about too much, or just something I played on stream.
On twitch.tv/friendyadev, where I'm gonna be doing art and other stuff here. Okay, bye.
Just think of it like a mixture of a friendier and a Moist Critical video. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about the latest hero shooter to hit the market, Concord, developed by Firewalk along with a multitude of other outsourced studios like Superspeed and PlayStation Visual Arts. That's currently been in beta for the last 2 weeks, this last weekend being the full open beta, which I got a chance to play. I'm going to start with the majority of the good stuff because there is a large amount of good stuff, but there is a couple of factors involved that I'm worried about concerning the launch of the game and whatever comes next. It leaves me worried. I don't think there's anything bad per se, but it's just something worth noting. To start off, the presentation of the game, everything is completely pretty and they knocked it out of the park. There's so much detail and care put into the game with the environments, map painting, vistas on startup when you're flying into the planet to start the match. It has that Titanfall 2 Call of Duty Modern Warfare like intro cinematic. It just adds so much more. It just makes it feel really nice. It gets the immersion pumping, if that makes sense. The view model animations, all the reloads are very unique. Even the third-person animations, though subtle because you're not really paying attention too much, really are character-driven, and it gives it just enough personality to where you're like, oh, I'm playing this character, I'm not playing just someone that's a default hero. Even the facial animation, which you only really see when you're selecting your character in the select screen and whatnot, they're really detailed and smooth. It's almost like Uncanny Valley, but it's not. It's just really well done, and it made me kept looking at myself in the camera as I was playing, like, does my face move like that? Yeah, I'm assuming it's mocapped because they use a lot of, just because it seemed a lot easier to capture that and the essence of the actor. And when you're using PSVA, the main hub of where a lot of the Sony people go in to record mocap and animation reference, it would make sense to use that. And one of my favorite parts about it, just being an environment artist and someone who has to look at these things all the time, everything from the material reads on the clothes, the walls, the floor, and the art direction giving to, like, every room is so drastically different, not even necessarily layout, the colors especially, and yellow on doorways, like you can go through here, it just feels good, and it's very clear, it's easy to read, and in a game where you're running pretty fast, it's not like Call of Duty levels of fast. It makes it a lot easier to play and navigate through these fairly large maps. The sound design too is overall excellent, excluding the little over-the-top beeping that just constantly goes through on every point when you're playing Domination. Seriously, I don't need a beep every point. I get that I have the point. I don't need it. It's maybe muted or like have it every 5 beats, but that's a bit too much, but it's good. From a gameplay standpoint, it's very clear just as you're playing it, a bunch of former Bungie devs, and it feels like a really solid balance between Destiny 2 and Apex in that way. It's snappy, it's fast, it feels like reminiscent of an in-between of Overwatch 2 and TF2. In a way, I know that's kind of heresy comparing anything to the legend that is Team Fortress 2, but it is a really good balance in between because you do rely on your teammates, but it's not as, like your teammates aren't a crutch and preventing you from making really good solo plays. And it's Overwatch 1. It's Overwatch 1, like at the beginning, where you can choose multiple tanks, you could choose multiple DPS, you could choose all these things that made the original Overwatch really fun before it got really focused on meta, which if you want to go that route, sure, you can go that way, but the first couple years of Overwatch, I think were its peak, and that's where Concord is feeling right now, at least to me. Time to kill is pretty standard too. It's nothing too crazy, and if you're really not squishy, it'll be around that Black Ops 4 level of time to kill. It does feel slow, especially if you're fighting a tank. As someone who can't melt tanks, it sucks, but honestly you shouldn't be doing that anyways, which kind of sounds like a skill issue. One interesting mechanic that I had a lot of fun with was the little mini deck builder thing they have set up, where each crew member has a different stat modifier that really goes with their own personality, like Tactician, Ranger, Haunt, Anchor, Breacher, Warden, Those are your main classes, and they all have their own little stats that you go with it. And with each different character that you have, it like adds a little boost to it. So like if you want to be a tank and then you run all the different little hunt characters, your tank character is going to be one of the fastest characters in the game, excluding like the really, really heavy boys. But if you want to be a Star Child that only runs off shotguns, melees, and stuff like that, and you run in with your full haunt, you're gonna a little bit of a menace.
I'm blue, I'm fast, I'm just Sonic with a shotgun.
Whereas on the other side, if you're gonna be a full tank, for example, one-off, and then you have a complete build set up to be healed better, you're gonna be on those points for a very long period of time if you have a decent healer and you're just not dying a lot. It adds an extra layer of depth that I didn't really think I wanted in this game, but it made it more intriguing and it gave a little more thought into it. None of these are too game breaking, if I'm being honest, but it adds enough to where I'm thinking about it. And there's obviously gonna be videos coming out as soon as the game launches, like, oh my fucking god, this build makes Baz the most broken character in all of Concord, or my wife literally left me for using this Itsy build. And then it's all gonna have the shocked emojis with the red outlines and the fucking arrows and circles and stuff. Oh, which circle backs to the game modes. The game modes in the beta were pretty straightforward. You had your TDM, your hardpoint domination, and then you had your like single life hardcore variation. So your search and destroy. And I was worried for a bit because we played this on stream both days for about 5 to 6 hours a piece, and I was worried it was going to get redundant. But with all the variations in the builds, the characters, the maps too, it didn't go stale because you had so many other factors to worry about constantly. And I'm gonna be honest, even though I'm recording this now, I really still want to play more of the game. I haven't had this much fun in a long time since the original Overwatch release. I think the one like overarching factor I have with this game is with most games that are live service. There's an inherent fear of the post-launch content. Call of Duty makes roadmaps per season. League of Legends has updates like every 2 weeks or something. World of Warcraft and Destiny do full-on expansions that completely change the landscape of every instance, for the most part, except for Lightfall and anything after Cataclysm. And Fortnite just does whatever they want, and people will complain about it every time. With every new addition and DLC, causes some form of potential fear, breaking the balance of the game's meta or the game as a whole. Variations in quality are to be expected, but the bar is set from the purchase. And especially when talking to consumers, it's our job as developers to sell you on this product that we've spent so much time of our lives working on, which is the big if factor, because the game is going to run you about $40 on launch. I think that's what it's set for right now. They may have a special edition or a different edition go forward, but as of right now, this is where it's going to be. Now scrolling, I got one of the people in my chat while we were talking about it mentioned to look at the credits going through just because it was cool. It had like dust effects that you can wipe off with your little number pad on the pad on the PlayStation 5 controller. It had this cool CRT effect, but as it was going through, I noticed it had a full PvE design implement on it, and I genuinely believe that this is going to be the make or break point of the game and the huge selling point, because a lot of players now have so much free to play multiplayer shooters. If that PvE content doesn't give us what we wanted with Overwatch 2, there's going to be no reason for a lot of people to buy it, because that's what we wanted. We really wanted to play an expansive story with all these characters and have a different playstyle with our friends in a 5v whatever setting. If Concord and everyone at Firewalk can deliver on something that Blizzard couldn't, I think this game will be fine. But if it's just gonna be like some pseudo relaxed, like non-existent thing, the game will have a conundrum, and it might be, as everyone and that one guy that came in our chat just to be mean talked about, it's gonna be dead on arrival, which is a really rude thing to say, I think, because yes, it is your money. You're supposed to do what you want, and I implore you to do what you want and spend smartly, but you shouldn't automatically write off a new IP when it wants to do something fresh with an established idea. What Firewalk did is that they took everything solid from TF2, Overwatch 1, threw it in a blender, threw in some Apex and Destiny 2, with just a odd peppering of Slay the Spire, and gave us something really unique and familiar, but enough freshness just to have me keep going. Again, I'm really hoping that PvE section like really pops off because I want this game to succeed. Like, biases aside, I know I always root for a developer and consumer to win no matter what the game is and whether or not, and I do have a bias, I'm going to disclaim this right now, I do have friends that worked on this game and I wanted to do well, but I also just had a really good time. It was a different pacing, it felt good, it felt nice, and if Firewalk really wants to push this and have the backing of Sony just to have that constant flow of income with, apparently it's not toxic in terms of microtransactions, like it's only going to be cosmetics, so that means they're obviously going to fully support it as much as you need. Like, there's no reason to have a bad outlook on a potentially new and fresh idea, because if it's good, maybe it'll give enough kick in the ass to the higher ups at Blizzard and everyone that's just kind of been taking lax on the FPS genre as a whole. It's like, yo, we can actually do something fresh and new and original without completely deviating from what makes games fun.